Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amir Rochalina.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast is brought to you by Holland, Hahn & Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland, Hahn & Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. I'm joined today by Andrew Thompson. Andrew is the owner of Salon No.13, Surbiton's newest hair salon, aiming to offer luxurious and stress-free hair appointments. What's unique about Andrew is how he's leveraged all of his experience in working at other salons to finally setting up his own business, where he hopes to give his clients a taste of what he believes a salon experience should really be. And be sure to listen to the end, where Andrew shares with us the journey he went through to taking the plunge and setting up his own business. So whether you're interested in knowing more about the world of hair salons, or would like to know more about what it takes to run a successful independent business, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. Welcome, Andrew Thompson, to the Inside Kingston Podcast. Andrew, I'm really excited about this conversation because, well, for me, it's always great to get to speak with and learn from creative professionals and entrepreneurs from many different fields. And I think that myself and our listeners can learn a lot from your experience in both the hair salon business, but also by being one of the newest businesses here in the Kingston area. But to kick off this conversation, I'd like to go back in time, if that's okay. Yep. So Andrew, where did you grow up?
So I am originally from Southern Ireland. I grew up on the northeast coast of Ireland, just outside Dublin City, in a small seaside town called Balbriggan. I lived there for probably about 11 years and then moved into the country. And then I stayed there until I was 17 and got a flavour for travelling. So I moved to Spain. I lived in Spain for 3 years. Then I came back to the UK. Had a little jaunt here for a little while and then moved back to Ireland. Stayed there for about 5 years or so and have been living in the UK ever since.
Very cool. And I've only had the opportunity to travel to Ireland once, and I mainly stayed in Dublin, but I really, really enjoyed it. And I just happened to get good weather for the 4 days I was there. and I will say this, England, when it's green, is beautifully green. But Ireland is a different level of green. I mean, it's shades of green. It's
definitely on a different par. It's definitely on a different par.
Yeah.
It's I think people just also what I find from living now in the UK is that people's perception of Ireland is just one big green field. I'm like, it is maybe an island, but it's a very cosmopolitan island, as you would have discovered by going to Dublin. However, the west coast of Ireland is magnificent.
Yeah,
absolutely beautiful.
That's on the to-see list for one of these days, for sure. And Andrew, what did you study after secondary school?
So I went straight into hairdressing. Oh. I've been working in a salon since I was 14.
Wow.
14 years of age, which is quite young. However, at the time, it was kind of allowed, as it were. I was a Saturday boy. And then I finished school at 16 and continued my career in the same salon that I worked with. And did an MVQ. So I did an in-salon MVQ training. So I didn't actually go to college. I did everything on location.
That's very cool. And again, I've said this a number of times now, but one of the great things about the conversations I've had here on the Inside Kingston podcast is especially for the benefit of some of our younger listeners. I know there's quite a few listeners that study at Kingston Uni that hear our episodes and our conversations here. Just the many different ways that one can go about finding the thing that they then want to be great at. I find that amazing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, I was extremely lucky because I fell into it, literally fell into it, because my mother was a hairdresser. My two aunties were hairdressers. My sister was a hairdresser. And I think I have two cousins that were hairdressers. So blonde hair and blue eyes might very well be in the genes, but so was hairdressing. And I was very fortunate to be kind of nurtured into the career very young. So when it came to leaving school and making big decisions, like, it was a no-brainer for me. I didn't have to sit down and have that career choice, or what kind of subjects am I going to choose for later on in life. So I personally myself I've gone on a very easy journey, as it were, into my career. So yeah, I'm very thankful for how I got into it, but I would imagine for anybody listening, and particularly those in college at the moment, it's a very scary world out there. And when you're trying to find your niche, considering there's quite a lot that one can do for a living, it can be quite daunting. So yeah, for me, I'm one of the fortunate ones, definitely.
Yeah. And could you tell us a little bit about your career journey before you set up your business?
Yeah, certainly. So I trained in salon, as I said, in a salon in Dublin, in Malahide. So there was quite a large team, actually. It was an independent salon. I've never worked for a chain of hair salons. I've always worked for independents. And I worked there for about 11 years on and off. I say on and off because when I moved to Spain for 3 years, the girl who I worked for, I then went and worked for her father. So I was keeping in the family. He had an entertainment business in Spain, and I went and did that for a little while. Rather than go traveling and go crazy, I just carried on working, but just in a different field, but with the same family values, which was good for me and also for my parents because I was 17 at the time. So what I actually did there, I did some seasonal work. So I would do like maybe 6 or 7 months in Spain and then come back and work in the salon and then go back to Spain and so forth and so forth. I did that for 3 years. And then I decided I was going to live in the UK with my then partner, which clearly didn't work out. So I did work in a salon over here though for briefly. And that was kind of okay. And then I moved back to Ireland and then went back to work for the same lady who had just opened up a new business in the town village, I should say, where my mum is from.
Wow.
And I ended up going in there and very much went into the management side of things with her. So I became her salon manager and a shareholder within her business. So I worked there, I think, for 5 or 6 years before I got the bug again to move. And then moved over to the UK, and I decided to try and give hairdressing not so much a miss, but maybe go down a different avenue within the industry. So I worked for a product company who shan't be named because there's quite a lot out there, so we'll just keep that to ourselves. Yeah. But I worked for a product company as an educator for them. So I traveled around London and areas like in here in the KT postcodes, TW postcodes, out through Essex and all that kind of area. As a man who had just moved to the UK and was very unaware of traffic and the volume of traffic, particularly in London, that was a very challenging job, I'm not going to lie. So that was quite cool though, because I then became a senior member of the artistic education team for said company. So I traveled around the country and a couple of times through Europe to do some hair shows, which were quite cool. I've done TV shows. I've done magazine photo shoots. I've done catwalks. Yeah, I've kind of been around the block a little bit, but certainly a hell of a lot more to learn and to experience. So I'm by no means at the top of my game whatsoever, but I've had a little bit of experience under my belt in different scenarios within the same industry.
Yeah,
and then I moved.
Sorry, carry on. I was just going to say that mentality of being a lifelong learner, it holds everybody. It definitely holds me in really good stead because there's always something else to chase, isn't there?
Yeah, we're never finished learning, and particularly in my industry, like my industry changes on a daily basis. All we need is for some celebrity to get papped with a new hair color or a new fringe, and therefore it becomes a trend. So it's ever evolving, which is brilliant. The one main reason why I enjoy my job so much is because I'll never, ever do the same day twice. So I can work 5 days a week in the same salon, in the same area, the same hours, and do the same services, but I'll always get a different result, because obviously everyone's hair is different, every texture is different, and therefore the conversation is always going to be different too. So I never repeat a day, which is amazing, and keeps me going, I suppose, in that respect.
Very cool. And to bring this conversation to the present, could you tell us a little bit about your business today?
I certainly can. So I moved to a salon in Surbiton about 7 years ago, and I became a self-employed hairdresser there. So prior to that, up in my whole career, I had worked for a business, and then I moved to this salon and became self-employed, and I rented a chair. And that was quite scary within itself, because I'd never done that before. So I was learning a lot about tax and paying tax for the first year or so. And that was really cool. I quite enjoyed it because I was my own boss, but within like a co-op of a company, as they used to call themselves. And then unfortunately, that salon closed down last February. Luckily for them, maybe, or I'm not so sure, but it was pre-COVID and pre-lockdown. It just dissolved itself. So I was kind of at the edge of a cliff as to what I was going to do. So I decided to jump and see what happens. And yeah, now I have my own business. I've always wanted my own salon. I've never made that a secret. I've always wanted to have my own shop. Not so much my own name above the door, but definitely knowing that when I'm the one who opens and closes the door. And yeah, it kind of happened very quickly.
Andrew, you mentioned the word jumped there. And of course, you worked under other people who owned their own salons before you took the plunge, or before you jumped to open your own doors as such. Now, I'm not sure if anyone is ever really ready to sort of take the plunge, as it were, but do you recall having that I'm ready sort of moment?
So touching on what you were saying about not so sure if anybody has that kind of I'm ready moment. The situation surrounding how I became in that position was a little bit volatile in my last place of work, and I was given very, very short notice of its demise. So I had 5 weeks to decide what I was going to do with my next chapter of my life. And having always wanted to have a business, it was kind of like now or never. So yeah, it was very, I don't think my feet hit the floor from the beginning of February till maybe like the end of March, because I went through a phase of obviously making sure I was ready, if we're ever kind of ready. I'm still not sure about that a year later, but I went through the phase of trying to get my head in the right space of, I'm about to do this. This is kind of happening. And hopefully once it happens, there's no going back, but one never knows what's around the corner. However, it was I had to find the premises. I knew I had to stay within the same area that I'm worked out of. My client base is in Surbiton. So I knew I had to find the premises within Surbiton. And obviously pre-COVID, there's a lot now, but there wasn't very many on the market at the time. And I'm a very, very firm believer in everything happens for a reason. And the unit that I'm in now literally fell into my lap. And it was a case of, if I don't take this, I'm never going to get one. And yeah, we just kind of ran with it, really. I say we because although it's my business, it's my salon, there's a lot of people behind everybody. And I better say it because she's going to listen, but behind every man is a great woman. And my wife was my absolute rock throughout the whole thing. So she was like my main support and the one constantly encouraging me to do it, along with my parents. Between the three of them, I had a very good support crutch behind me, telling me that I can do it and that I'm ready to do it. And anytime I felt that kind of insecure about, going back to your question, whether I was ready or not, they were there to tell me that I was.
That's really cool, and so important to have those rocks in our life who remind us that sometimes it's just the imposter syndrome, as it's called, is just in our own head, because
For
we
sure.
have worked our way to earn the right to take the plunge, as you've said, and well done for you and for your family, therefore, encouraging you to do that, Andrew. Andrew, I came across your business through social media, and it's a question that I ask all the guests here on the show. How do you, as a business owner, think about using social media to maintain contact with your existing customers, but to also attract the attention of potential new customers as well?
So that's a very good question. And I've spoke about this quite a few times, but I'm by no means like a social media, what's the word I'm looking for? A social media expert at all. However, it's kind of a no-brainer because social media is the biggest platform that we have on the web at the moment, and it's free. I mean, it's free advertising, it's free marketing, it's free communication. So if there's a business out there that doesn't use it, they need to just ask themselves the question, why? When I chose to set up my business, social media was my go-to as my kind of in-between to be able to speak with my clients, and to be able to keep them updated on the progress of the salon, to be able to keep them updated on where the business is going to go, how the business is going to look, how the salon's going to look. It was probably the saving grace for me to be able to communicate via a Facebook page or an Instagram page with my client base, the salon's client base, and also, as you say, like a new audience. So in terms of using social media and searching hashtags, which is obviously what Instagram is for, I'm hopeless at doing that. So I've never actually searched, but I'm very aware that people do. So it's a no-brainer, because when I was moving from our existing salon to my now new salon, we obviously wanted to keep our client base with us. The beauty, as it happens, was it all went through lockdown, the first one. So we had no competition. So there was no one, our clients were never going to move anywhere else because there was nowhere else open. But I thought it was very, very, very important to keep them involved in the journey. I didn't want to just be like, okay, we'll see you when we reopen and let that be that. My computer-based system obviously wasn't up and running until the salon opened. So therefore, for me, the only way of communicating was either via email or social media. So I probably look back on it now and think I probably could have used it better with maybe like a couple of videos and just kind of like introduce them to the work that was going on in the salon. But then also one needs to have a little bit of, you need to hold something back, right? Yeah. And give them that little bit more of a surprise. I'm not so sure if you're aware of where the salon is positioned, but we're on the high street in Surbiton. Mm-hmm. And when builders like to work in a business, in a property, they like to leave everything open. There's music going on all day long. Of course, we're surrounded by banks and supermarkets, so there was queues everywhere. So I think they actually turned out to be one of my heroes in self-advertising for the salon as well. So between the three of us, the builders, social media and emails, it was very important to use it and to use it as a tool. It has its negatives, but for me, the positives definitely outweigh everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned there the word bringing your customers on that journey of creating the business and the salon with you. You also have this really interesting project, and I believe it's ongoing in a different maybe shape or form, but you brought a local artist into your salon to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, to showcase some of her pictures, some of her art. And that's really interesting because that's suddenly sort of like, Andrew Salon X someone else locally. And we know that those sort of projects can be the true sort of 1 + 1 = more than 2.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very much all about a collaboration. And I particularly, I think, since last year, have put myself in the mindset that businesses will survive if you support each other. So we all have our own clients. We all have our own demographic of who will be interested in our business and who won't be interested in our business. But unless the businesses, particularly in small towns in the Kingston postcode, unless they support each other, we're never going to succeed. There's no point in trying to come into a community and trying to get I suppose there's no point in trying to stamp my place on this community if I don't do things to help the community. So in terms of the artist, that would be Jo Keir, and she is a client of mine. I've done her hair for about 6 or 7 years now, and she was very, very, very excited about her first ever art display in Surbiton last year, which just happened to fall on the weekend of the first national lockdown.
Exactly.
So I said to her, don't worry, we'll get it sorted. Everything will be fine. We'll get Surbiton. Surbiton will be able to see it. Don't worry. It'll be fine. Trust me. You know those elusive words, trust me. One that a hairdresser never really says, or people never say to a hairdresser, trust me. So what happened was the building that I'm in, out the back, we have a very long white wall that I said she can have. And that's basically Jo's wall. So it's her gallery. So everybody who comes to the salon, if they need to use the loo, they have to walk past her gallery. So therefore, it's just natural advertisement for her. We have her pictures around the salon. I've purchased quite a few of them myself. I was her first ever customer. So that was quite nice for me. So when she gets nice and famous, I can be like, I helped her along her way. So we did a collab, and what she does is she just ever evolves it. So she changes it in and out. Whenever she feels the need, time to showcase some more work, she'll take down some stuff. She'll pop up some new things. Everything in the salon is for sale, bar those that I own myself. Although if the price was right, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound. And then, of course, when we reopened in April of this year, we did another installation in our window. So we had her on the high street. So we had our window there was 9 pictures, I think, in the window, all for sale. Again, she did an offer, like a spring offer, and the traffic that got just by being on the window was unbelievable. And for me to be able to give somebody that for free and to help them is kind of what business for me is all about.
Yeah, and look, I definitely second that. We're kindred spirits. That the whole purpose of the Inside Kingston podcast is to create a platform for local businesses, entrepreneurs, community leaders to share their story with us in the community and with the world. So I definitely take my hat off to you for pursuing that idea there. And for our listeners,
but look, it works both ways because I get great artwork on my wall, I don't have to try and find what to put there.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who are interested in knowing more about Jo, she's been on the show. So just scroll back a few episodes and you'll see her episode there on the show. She's a great person. We had a great chat here too. Now, Andrew, of course, over these last 14 months, in one way or another, all of us as business owners or employees or just being alive in this period of time have been affected by the ins and outs of lockdowns and how they've affected, you know, our businesses and our lives. For you in particular, given that you're such a new business in the area, how has these COVID lockdowns affected your business?
So if you were to ask me this question a year ago, I probably would have cried just with the mention of the word COVID. But in actual fact, I think it's been probably one of the best things that's happened to me. And I'm pretty sure not very many people are going to say that about COVID. So I actually signed the lease for the salon on the 13th of March, which happened to be my birthday. So I was like, 13 is my lucky number. Hence, we're now called Salon No.13. And I was like, it's all the stars are aligning. Everything is meant to be. It's all going to happen. It's great. And then a week later, the country and possibly the world went into lockdown. And I thought to myself, oh, dear God, what have I done? I had never probably given away so much money for a set of keys in my life. So I was like, what are we going to do? Fortunately, and I mean, very, very fortunately, the builder that I had put in place to renovate the salon was very keen to continue working because they were allowed. And he had a very small team. So they carried on with the construction and reconstruction of the business and turning a unit that was a phone shop into a hair salon, which was quite tricky. More so because if you remember, a lot of things dried up. So supplies and supply chains stopped. So like plasterboard, for example, my salon is covered in it. And it was very, very hard to purchase come April. So it was quite challenging. The whole salon had to be designed and kitted out via the internet. Everything in the salon was bought online. Nothing was bought through touching, seeing, or feeling. Everything had to be done via the web, which was scary. It was exciting and heart attack inducing at the same time. There's quite a lot of large things in the salon, like the furniture and the basins, etc., that I just had to pick off a wing and a prayer and hope that they worked. Very fortunately, everything that is in the salon, nothing had to go back. So it was kind of good. But the massive bonus for me, and if hopefully we will never go into a lockdown like it again, but should we ever do, I would recommend anybody listening to set up a business. Because what it enabled me to do was it enabled me to stop and think and look at what I wanted to achieve in my business. As I said earlier on in the show, it was thrust upon me very quickly. So I had 5 weeks to kind of find the premises, make up my mind, and sign a lease. So everything was kind of like a whirlwind. Everything was going really, really fast. I was getting asked a lot of questions. What am I doing? What's happening? What about the staff? Because the staff who work with me came from the previous salon that closed down. So I was trying to keep them in employment as well. So I was kind of spinning about 7 or 8 different plates at the same time and not really knowing how high each of them is going to go, when they're going to drop, etc. But lockdown gave me time. And it gave me time to think about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to achieve, how I wanted the premises to look, how I wanted the salon to look, how I wanted the business to feel to somebody when they walk in the door, how I wanted me to feel when I walked in, everything. It just gave me time. And the main reason why it gave me actually a little bit of peace, if that can even be said, is because in the industry that I'm in, everyone was closed. So we were all locked down. It was a national lockdown. Nothing was open. The first lockdown was amazing. And I speak for myself on that one because of what I was going through. And I knew, as I touched on previously, that from a competitive and a business point of view, that none of my competitors in Surbiton were open. So therefore, we weren't going to lose any of our client base. We didn't have to worry about them going to a competitor. So it actually, for me, was probably the best timing ever, really. And then, of course, we opened on the 4th of July to craziness.
And Andrew, it feels to me that what you're describing there is that conundrum that every single small business owner in the land has, which is this difference, this split between working in the business and working on the business. And where you found the blessing in disguise, as it were, through that first lockdown period in particular, was that it gave you the chance to work on the business rather than being busy in the business in the day-to-day of it. Is that right?
Oh my God, for sure. So if I, from experience previously, before any of this lockdown and COVID madness happened, I'm very aware of how to run a salon, been a salon manager previously, and looking at that then and looking at the situation I was in, if I didn't have lockdown, I don't know how I ever would have got the salon up and running. Even things like business cards, price lists, websites, I had to do everything. So it was all like it was my decision. The logo, the name of the salon, like registering the business, everything, every little small thing that you have to do to have a business, I had to do myself, naturally. But if it wasn't for lockdown, I don't think I'd even be open now because there's so much to do. But it was literally, as you just said, like a blessing in disguise because it allowed me the time. So in last year, I had a lot of empathy from people, a lot of people reaching out and, oh, I feel so sorry for you. And, oh my God, I think about you every day. And I feel so sorry for you and your wife, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, do not feel sorry for me whatsoever because I have time. I'm going nowhere. The business is going nowhere. Nothing is happening. It's those who have a business pre-existing that we needed to feel sorry for because I didn't have anything to lose.
Yeah, and it looks to me like you've just built and built. So well done to you, Andrew. I want to put a spin on that question a bit because I think it's really relevant to hear this from your point of view. Because I think it's fairly clear that a trip to the hair salon, as mundane as that might have felt pre-COVID, as a normal occurrence as that might have felt, it's one of those little things in life that can bring a lot of joy to people. How have you found the conversations at your salon recently where customers have finally been able to go back to this experience that contributes to really them feeling good about themselves?
So I can answer that in several different ways. It goes from starting off with no longer having lockdown hair, no longer having hair that has been done by their partner, no longer having regrowth or grey, no longer having too long hair, a fringe that they can't see through, etc., etc. But the overall feeling is of just pure and utter joy of people, and you know, it rubs off on us. You know, so we've locked down 3 times now. This is our 3rd time we've reopened, and I've just said to my wife the other week, I feel like myself again. And what I mean by that is my job. It's a tough job. I'm not going to lie. It's a very enjoyable job, but it's the most rewarding job ever, and particularly at the moment because everybody in this country or other has gone for months on end without a haircut. Everybody. And we've never had that before. And as you said, like, you know, it can be a mundane thing. There's people who really don't like having their hair done. There's people who really love having their hair done. And right now, I think everybody as a whole loves having their hair done. It's gone from, I've always said having a hairdo, need it be once every 6 weeks, once every 4 weeks, or whatever cycle you're in, and whatever the service may be, need it be a cut, a colour, a blow dry, styling, whatever. It's a luxury. Years ago, going to a hair salon was a necessity, but now it's definitely a luxury. And where we want to go with our brand is we want to make it an affordable luxury. So we're a high street based salon. You have all the amenities that go on with any other salon. Obviously, I would like to say a little bit extra, the Salon No.13 touch. However, we're affordable. We're affordable luxury. And I think that appeals a lot more now in our current climate than ever before. I've no inclination or no want or whatever to change what we do. Definitely not to change our price point right now, because I want people to feel that going to a hair salon now is coming back to the luxurious side of things rather than the necessity. And I think lockdown is helping us achieve that. But what we do find is a lot of people, what they tend to do now is they rebook a lot more than they ever used to do before for fear of another lockdown. Or what we did as a business was every time we reopened, those who had a previous booking that we couldn't do due to restrictions and lockdowns were on a priority list. So I think everyone wants to pre-book now just so they can be on a priority list should anything happen. So also going on to talking, I just run away with my conversation, but also going on to the conversation in a salon, it's very different to where it used to be. There's a lot of talk of vaccinations, and it's a lot of, have you had yours? I've had mine. You know, one-man upmanship on everybody. Those who have both of them, we nearly stop and give them a round of applause. It's like, well done. There's a lot of conversation about Boris's roadmap as to what's going to happen in the future. There's a lot of conversation. Generally, the conversation in a salon, and particularly in our salon at the moment, revolves around our current situation. Need that be PPE or lack of, vaccinations or holidays or therefore lack of, etc., etc. But, you know, the beauty of it is that because of this whole time frame and crazy period we're going through, is that every single person is entitled to their own opinion and belief on it. And therefore, it's never a monotonous conversation because every day we hear a different opinion or a different value. And it makes for really, really cool listening. I find myself, I can delegate my ears, if that makes sense, because I'll have one ear on the conversation with those who I'm doing their hair for, and also another ear scoping the room, just to kind of make sure everything is okay, but also to keep an ear out on what they're actually kind of chatting about. And it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Oh gosh, I bet. Andrew, what are some of the key business lessons that you've learned throughout your life?
Business lessons is the most important thing is I think I've learned throughout the last year is that nobody is irreplaceable and nothing is irreplaceable. So never feel content with what you have. I always recall a friend of mine who had a job in, let's not go into names, but in a certain high street store, and I always felt that the shop would fall down around them if they weren't there. And that's not true, unfortunately. That need it be a business or a person is that everybody is replaceable. And as much as I don't think any of my staff are replaceable, the business as a whole is. So like anything can happen at the drop of a hat. And you just need to, the biggest lesson I've learned is that not to take anything for granted. Definitely don't take anything for granted, because I closed the door one day, but it doesn't mean I'm going to open it the next day.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, just to have that sense of always striving to achieve that bit more, to give you and your team that sense of security and that you guys are going somewhere. We're big believers of that in our business too. So definitely thanks for sharing that. When you look back at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
So there's quite a few things I'm proud of. Starting from the beginning, I'm quite proud of the fact that I fully trained as a hairdresser in 11 months. I put my head to the ground and just cracked on and just got the job done. I knew I wanted to do it, so there was no point in dilly-dallying around it. Like, I was in control of my destiny in that respect with a MVQ. So the quicker you work, the quicker you became qualified. It was quite strange for people maybe going into a salon and having like an 18-year-old young man in charge of everything to do with your hair. And obviously then trying to build up the confidence and the faith in myself to emulate that to my clients. So that, I'm very proud of that part, the beginning. I love the fact of that I got to do what I've got to do in the years I've been in the UK with the hair shows, etc. Some of the TV shows I've worked on has been quite cool. And obviously now, most importantly, is my current position as salon owner, and surviving what probably is one of the hardest years anybody will ever go through in business. I haven't been there, so I'm not quoting, but I don't think a recession for the likes of my business could be as hard as a pandemic, and a global one at that. So I think, I don't think I've ever actually said it out loud, but until now, I'm quite proud of myself, for actually being able to open the business and to keep it open. But I have to kind of sidetrack on that one and say none of that would have been possible without the help that I had from the government and, of course, Kingston Council. So, we all have a lot to be grateful for.
Absolutely, no doubt. And what next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
What's next for me and my business? So I am not sure if you're aware, but I like to make a statement on the high street. We've done that so far with like our window displays. It need to be Christmas. We had Halloween, we had Valentine's Day, Easter. Even though we weren't open, we still had displays in the window. We now are adorned by a lot of flowers. We have collaborated with a local florist, Claire Marie Jones, and a local company, Wild Reclamation, who customized a planter outside. And we are going to do a few little new surprises for the front of our business. I'm a firm believer in your window is 24-hour advertisement. I don't like to hang posters as such in the window, but I definitely want to decorate it. So that's an up-and-coming project that we're about to do. We're also a year old in July, even though we haven't been open for a full year, but we're a year old in July. So I am thinking of what I'm going to do as an advertising strategy. So let's just say we'll be coming to a billboard near you, hopefully, in the summertime. And just a few little in between bits within the salon, just a few new installations of flowers, etc., just to keep the place looking nice and fresh.
Exciting times ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, last year my business goal was to open the business, and this year my goal is just to stay open. Yeah. So not asking for much, right?
That's brilliant. That's fantastic. As we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So Andrew, what do you do to relax outside of the office?
Work out.
Although
I don't look like it. I don't look like it. But yeah, to work out, yeah.
You say that, and, work out immediately might conjure images of sort of bodybuilders. But I think, working out, and definitely the flavor of the conversations over these last 12 months that I've been having here on the show, just regular walks have become something that a lot of people never did, and they're loving it.
Yeah, for sure. Exercise and getting out and about. I used to be a runner, so it'd be nice to get back into that again. And then my wife has just had a baby, so we did a lot of walking at the beginning of this year. So if I can lay off the walks for a little while, that'd be good. So maybe just a bit more exercise.
Cool. Are there any books that you've recently read that you'd recommend to our listeners?
So I'm a firm lover of James Patterson. I absolutely adore. He's the first author I ever read, and I've just finished. He has a series called The Women's Murder Club, and I've just finished number 19. I've started number 20, and number 21 has just come out. So if anybody is looking for a series of books to read, there's definitely a lot of material there.
Very cool. And are there any movies or TV shows that you've recently watched that you recommend to our listeners?
Oh my God, like the whole of Netflix. We've actually just finished watching, I think it was called Innocent or The Innocent on terrestrial television. And my wife has just made us start watching The Pact on ITV, which is also, it's on BBC, I think, because it's on iPlayer. So I'm just about to get my teeth into that one at the moment.
Very cool. And finally, where can people go to find out more about you and your business?
So that's easy. So we are on Instagram, Facebook, and of course the website. Everything is salon no.13.co.uk, sorry. And it's spelled the word number. So salon, NUMBER 13, need to be Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah. And for the benefit of our listeners, I'll make sure that I add those links to the show notes.
Perfect.
Andrew, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.